Good morning, everybody. Aloha. Thank you. Please join me, our other speakers. Aloha, thank you for joining us today, and I'm especially grateful to see my colleague, Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, here to join us as we continue to fight back against Trump's authoritarian regime's attacks on public education. Since taking office or retaking office, President Trump and his Secretary of Education, billionaire Linda McMahon, have engaged in an all-out attack on public education. We're talking about public education that involves 50 million children. At every turn, they have created chaos and confusion, all at the expense of 50 million students. This time last year, you may remember that DOGE was firing hundreds of thousands of federal employees. 1 year ago today, they fired nearly half of the Federal Department of Education workforce. That's 2,000 employees, 2,000 public servants who shared one goal, and that was to help educate our kids. And of course, what could be more foundational than public education? And this regime has continued from day one to dismantle public school programs. Now, Trump knows that he can't just get rid of the Department of Education because Congress created the department, but he can do a lot of things to damage the programs of the department, to cut back the funding, to hold back funding, etc. So that's what he's doing. He's doing everything he can, mainly through executive orders, to undermine support for education. And this has led to numerous challenges in court against Trump's many executive orders. And while these court challenges play out, we are seeing the devastating consequences of these efforts to dismantle the Department of Education's programs. Take the Office of Civil Rights, for example. In March, Trump tried to fire employees at the Office of Civil Rights, but that was challenged, and the court told him that he can't do that. So what he did was to spend $38 million paying OCR employees not to come to work, which is the current situation at that office. Meanwhile, 90% of all civil rights complaints filed with the Department of Education are being dismissed. And each of these complaints represents a student or a teacher needing help, but they're not getting the help. As another example, this regime is moving $30 billion in education programs away from the Federal Department of Education to other departments, such as the Department of Labor, State Department, Interior. None of these departments have any wherewithal to run these programs. These are called interagency agreements. They have had no hearings on it. They're just implementing these, and eventually these programs are probably going to fall by the wayside. And these include programs that support low-income school districts, career and technical education programs, and Native students. And Trump is setting these programs up to fail. Know that by getting into these interagency agreements and shoving these programs to departments that do not have the experience or wherewithal to run these programs, he is setting these programs that our kids rely on for failure. So most recently, $350 million was stripped from 800 institutions, universities, all across the country, 800 institutions across the country, blue states, red states, just because these universities and colleges serve minority students. This is a program that supports minority serving, they're called minority serving institutions. So we know that the Trump regime will continue its attacks on the Department of Education, on federal workers, public schools, and the more than 50 million children across the country who rely on these programs. And that is why it is so important that we come together, calling attention to these attacks and alerting the American people to what is in store for the 50 million kids in our schools. And I tell you, part of the challenge for all of us is to mobilize the American people into the dangers of the lack of support for public schools. So we are doing that on a daily basis practically, and I have held 5 spotlight hearings focusing on the various cuts to education and the dismantling of these various programs.